Rhodes Overalls for women is finally here, and you can make your own to match your mini me. This is a perfect sewing pattern for the confident beginner, fun and simple project to sew. So this video is going to walk you through the entire process step by step. You can find the pattern linked below, and it comes with all the instructions that you need to create the Rhodes Overalls for women. You're going to begin by cutting out your pattern pieces. You can, before printing, hide the layers on your computer, and this will help printing go much smoother and help define the lines that you're going to be sewing and cutting out way easier. And if you don't do this option, I always like to just highlight the lines that I'm going to cut out with a highlighter before getting started. So cut out the pattern pieces according to the pattern. You'll see all of the details written on the pattern pieces, and a 1/2 inch seam allowance is used on the main pattern pieces, and a 1/4 inch seam allowance is on the pockets. The pattern instructions will direct you to the seam allowance while sewing, and they're all included in the pattern. Make sure you mark each notch, pocket placement, buttonhole placement, and button placement. And if you need any help, refer to the cutting sheet on your pattern that is linked below, and this will direct you on how to lay out your pattern on your fabric to save as much fabric as possible. You're going to begin by preparing the front and back pockets. Fold over the top of the pocket 1/2 inch to the wrong side of the fabric and iron. Keeping this fold again 1/2 inch to the right side of the fabric and iron. Sew on the side here at 1/4 inch. And turn everything right side out, pointing out the corners. Iron it really well and then sew across the top at 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is going to give it a top stitch. Now sew a gather stitch around the curves of the pocket at 1/8 of an inch and pull the gathers to curve the edges naturally. This should fold the sides over to the wrong side of the fabric, and the folded side should measure about 1/4 of an inch. Iron to make the curves crisp and prominent. This might take a little bit of time to make it even on both sides, but the more you work at it and iron it, it's going to look really clean. Repeat this process for the remaining back pocket and the front pocket, and set this to the side. Now we're going to prepare the side pockets. Grab the front side pockets and turn them with the wrong side facing up. Using an iron, fold and press the edge at 1/2 an inch towards the wrong side of the fabric. Keeping your 1/2 inch fold, press again at 1/2 an inch. Stitch along the diagonal side at 1/2 an inch. This will be the finished edge of your pocket opening. Starting on the side at 1/8 of an inch, create a gather stitch around the curves, and you're going to use the long tail of the bobbin thread to pull the threads to create that gather stitch and curve the edges really nicely towards the wrong side of the fabric. Iron this really well along the side. You can work at this to make sure everything is even and curving really nicely, and you're going to set these aside. Now find where the back pocket markings are on the back panels of the overalls. Pin the back pockets in place, lining up the top corners to the marks. Pin as much as you need to keep this secure, and make sure they are lined up evenly on each panel. Starting at the top right corner, right above the pocket, sew a few stitches. Backstitch a few times to make it secure and continue stitching around the edge of the pocket at an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Stitch around until you reach the other side of the pocket and backstitch. Now, I like to recommend stitching this again at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance for extra strength to the pocket and a decorative top stitch. Find the front side pocket markings on the front panels of the overalls. Pin the pockets in place, lining up the top corners and the corner of the diagonal. Pin this as needed and make sure it is secure. Starting at the bottom corner of the diagonal with an 1/8 inch seam allowance right above the pocket, create a few stitches and backstitch. Continue stitching around the pocket until you reach the other side of the diagonal and backstitch to finish. Now sew the side seams of the front and back panels together. Take one front and back panel piece and right sides facing, pin the outside seams of the front and back panels together, matching the notches. Make sure you're using enough pins to make sure everything is lining up in place, and then you're going to sew the outside seam at 1/2 an inch seam allowance. Finish the seam with a serger or a zigzag stitch to secure the edges so they don't fray. Repeat this for the remaining front and back panel pieces. Now iron the seam to the back panel. Then you're going to top stitch down the side of the back panel. This is going to create a decorative top stitch, keep everything really secure and in place and looking clean. Repeat this for the other panels that you just sewed together. Now match up the inseam of the front and back panels, matching the notches, bottom of the legs, and pinning in place. Starting at the top of the curve, sew at 1/2 an inch seam allowance. Finish your edges with the seam of your choice, like a zigzag stitch or serger. Repeat this for the other panel pieces and you'll have 2 pieces that look like tubes. Take one of your tubes and turn it right side out. Now you're going to insert it into the other tube, which will stay wrong side facing out. Make sure everything is lining up and you'll see that they are now right sides facing. Find the front crotch and the back and pin everything together, and you're going to have a U shape here. So at 1/2 inch seam allowance around the U shape. Finish the edges with a serger or zigzag stitch. Turn the overalls right side out. Now you're going to add a top stitch down the middle seam. Iron the finished edge of the middle seam that you just sewed to the left side. Turn the overalls right side out and 3/8 to the right of the middle seam, starting at the front top of the overalls. Top stitch down the middle until you finish on the back side of the overalls. Go slow, making sure you're using this seam as a guide for the presser foot, and this will keep everything aligned. And you'll have to maneuver and make sure everything is really flat, especially where the legs are joined. Let's attach the front pocket. Pin the front pocket to the front of the overalls, lining up the markings. Use as many pins as needed to make sure it stays in place. Starting at the top right corner, sew the large front pocket right along the edge at 1/8 inch. Lay the back facing right side up in front of you. Now line the front facing on top right sides together. Pin the side edges together and sew at 1/2 inch. Finish the side seams with a zigzag stitch or serge the edges. Finish the bottom of the facings with a serger or a zigzag stitch. Before we attach the facings, we're going to add interfacing. This will just make our buttonholes clean and sturdy, and where our buttons are going to be sturdy as well. Cut your interfacing to measure about 2 inches by 4 inches, and then you're going to take the side that is kind of textured and sticky, and this is going to attach to the wrong side of the facings. Iron it down and make sure it's secure in place. Then you're going to do this to the straps of the front and back facings. Now we're going to attach the facings to the overalls. Lay the overalls in front of you right side up. Keeping the facings wrong side out, pull them over the overalls, lining up the side seams and notches. The facings and overalls are now right sides together, and you'll want to pin them in place, starting at the side seams, going around the straps, making sure the front is matched up in the middle and on the back. Pin everything in place, and you want to sew around at 1/2 inch seam allowance, starting on the side seam. You're going to pivot around all the corners and finish where you started and backstitch. You have two options here. You can take your zigzag shears and trim around the sides. This is going to just prevent fraying and kind of just be an easy way to trim the edges of the facings. Or you can create notches around all of the curves and turn the facing right side out. Point the corners of the straps with a long pointed option like a chopstick and iron this really well. Iron everything around the facings and the seams. And then you're going to top stitch around the edge of the facing of the overalls at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now take the side seams of the facings and the overalls and make sure everything is lined up, and you're going to move your needle to where it's right over the seam, and this is going to just connect the facings once more to the overalls. On the back panel straps, mark where the buttonhole goes on your straps according to the pattern piece. Take your button and measure it, and then this is how long you want your buttonhole to be. Take your buttonhole presser foot and insert the button into the back. Attach this to your sewing machine. Line the buttonhole presser foot opening to the bottom right marking on the strap and follow the machine directions for a buttonhole. Once complete, take a pin and place this perpendicular to the top of the buttonhole and use a seam ripper to open the buttonhole. Repeat this for the other strap and use fray check to secure the stitches. You can add as many buttonholes as you need, maybe to make this adjustable or more suitable for your height and size. Now choose which length of the legs is best suited for you, and we're going to hem the legs. Starting with one leg, fold the edge of the leg opening 1 inch to the wrong side and iron. Fold once more at 1 inch and iron again. Stitch all the way around the leg opening and repeat for the other leg. On the front panel straps, now you're going to mark where your buttons go. Take your 1-inch button, needle and thread, and attach securely to the straps, sewing it in and out until you feel like it is secure. Tie it off and cut the excess threads. And now your Rhodes overalls for women are complete. You can wear proudly that you made this. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them below. To make the mini version, click this next video.